In the last video, we took a look at some basic types and how to use them. Types are a core part of programming in general, so you should take a look at that if you don't know much about them. And do you remember your homework? I'm severely disappointed if you forgot. Go back and do it, otherwise you'll be writing up lines. If you must know, the homework was to print the number of characters in a string, then print the last character of the same string. Here's how I've done it, but I welcome any alternative ways to go about it. First, we'll make the variable that will contain our string. To print the number of characters in a string, you can use the len function, like this. And then, to print the last character, we can take advantage of the fact that strings in Python are iterable. This means you can return each of its members one by one. Using square brackets, we can access any one of the members of an object. So to retrieve the last letter, we can type -1. This works because each of these letters are assigned to a number starting from 0, so -1 loops it around to the end. Well, there you have it. Again, be sure to tell me down in the comments if you have an alternative solution. Oh, and I haven't forgotten the quiz either. Here are the answers. The first question was, what are the two number types? And the two number types are int and float. What is the none type for is the second question. And the answer to that is the none type is mostly used as a placeholder. And the final question, what does the string false become when converted to a boolean? It returns true, because the string false isn't empty, regardless of what is inside it. Tell me how you did in the comment section below, and then we'll take a look at if statements. When you talk about nature, trees are often the first thing that come into mind. Trees are very beautiful things, but under all that beauty is complexity. Take off all of those leaves and you'll see a complicated network of branches all over the place. It starts from the trunk, then maybe the trunk will split into 2 or 3, and each of those fits into another 3. And, you know, branching isn't just limited to trees. Oh no, branching is a fundamental part of computer programming too. Computers often need to make decisions, whether to take one path or another, and we as Python programmers can help them decide using conditional statements, otherwise known as if statements. If statements will let you decide whether to run a block of code or not, and they're essential in most programs. For an if statement to work, we need a condition. A condition is an expression that's either true or false, and it's something you, as a human being, check often. We're always checking conditions, for example whether it's sunny outside. That statement is either true or false. So, armed with this piece of info, let's jump onto the REPL and make an if statement. Let's start by making a variable called weather. Now, let's make an if statement to test this condition. To start an if statement, use the if keyword followed by the condition followed by a colon. So in our case it would be this. Whoa, what just happened? Where has our triple arrow prompt gone? Now we have 3 dots. Don't worry, your 3 arrows aren't going anywhere. These 3 dots mean that Python is waiting for you to type a code block. A code block in Python is just one or more lines of code that are indented by the same amount to create the body of the if statement. This code block will only be executed if our condition is true. So if the weather is sunny, we can print it's sunny, let's go outside. So let's do that. First, we need to indent our code to tell Python it's part of the code block. Pet 8 recommends the indentation level to be 4 spaces, so that's what we'll use. Type in 4 spaces, then type print it's sunny. Then we'll hit enter. Now we're back to the ellipsis prompt, we'll type another 4 spaces, then print let's go outside. We've finished the block now, so we need to tell Python to finish and execute the if statement. For this, we dedent, or type in a blank line. And take a look at that. So, just to recap, we check to see if the variable contained the string sunny. And if it did, we print it's sunny, let's go outside. Did you notice we actually used two equal signs to do that? Well, that's because we used a relational operator. A lot of the time, conditions involve comparing two things. In our case, we compared the variable weather and the string sunny to see if they were equal. You need to have not one, but two equal signs to compare them. Otherwise, you're just going to get yourself an error. There are other relational operators too. There's not equal to, and then there's less than and greater than. Finally, there's less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to. You can use all of these in if statements to compare values, and they can really come in handy. Let's stop for a minute and talk about whitespace. Remember when I told you that you needed 4 spaces to indent your code blocks? Well, that's called whitespace, and it's maybe one of the most controversial things in the whole of Python. See, most other programming languages use curly braces to show where the start and end of a code block is, and indentation is optional. It's a good practice, but you don't have to do it. In Python, it doesn't work like that. You have to use indentation to denote code blocks, whether you like it or not. Turns out there are loads of people that like it, and loads that don't. But really, good programmers indent their code, whatever language they're in. It's just considered good practice anyway, because it makes code more readable. And looking at the Zen of Python, we can see that readability counts. People argue about the level of indentation as well, but Pep8 tells us that 4 spaces are the way to go. So far, our if statements will tell us to go outside if it's sunny, but what about if it's cloudy? If we change our variable to now contain the string cloudy, and repeat our if statement, nothing happens. That's because the condition is now false, as the weather is now cloudy. But what if we wanted the program to tell us to stay inside when it's cloudy? That's where if-else statements come in. If statements have an optional else clause, which is the opposite of if. It only executes if the condition is false. So, in our case, the else clause will only execute if the weather isn't sunny. So, let's try this again. We'll do the same if statement, but we won't enter a blank line just yet. Type in else : being sure that it's in line with the if statement above. Then we'll type 4 spaces again and type, then another blank line and it'll execute. Now we can see that because the weather isn't sunny, Python skips the first block and instead runs the else clause. Let's throw another factor into the equation. We want our program to check if it's sunny, rainy, or another weather condition. We'll change our variable to rainy, and at first you might be tempted to put another if statement inside the else clause like this. But don't. The Zen of Python states that flat is better than nested. In other words, the less indentation, the better. And it turns out there's an easier way to do this same thing. Enter the elif clause, short for else if. If the first condition is false, then evaluate this condition instead. So now we can write the above like this. And we can see that it asks us to wear a raincoat. So, to recap, we looked at how to write if statements, how to use the elif and else clauses, relational operators, and whitespace. And don't leave just yet, it's that time again. It's quiz time! Same as always, 3 questions, no mercy. Let's start off with the first question. Number 1. What does the if statement do? Number 2. What would this evaluate to if you typed it up in the REPL? And number 3. What is the recommended indentation level stated in Pep8? Tune in to my next video to find out how you did, and tell me your answers down in the comments in the meantime. Branching is an incredibly complex yet fundamental aspect of both the growth of trees and programming, so it's something worth practicing. So for your homework, you need to write a password program that asks for a password and tells you if you got it right or wrong. So, thanks for watching. As always, subscribe, like, dislike, you know how it goes, so I don't need to waste my breath telling you. Tell me down in the comments how you're keeping up, and until next time, see ya!